everyone. This is Don Smith, and my guest today is Ron Modra. I would like to welcome you to another episode of Beyond the Lens. And this is actually part 2 of an interview we've been doing with Ron. Ron, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Don. I really enjoyed the last.
I don't think you ever really left, did you? If you haven't seen part 1, I'd highly encourage you. I'm going to leave the link down below in the show notes. And it's all about Ron and his work for almost 27 years as a staff photographer for Sports Illustrated. Ron had close to almost 80 covers. And that's what the first video really delved into, was how Ron got started with Sports Illustrated. He shows a lot of fantastic pictures. So please check that out. And then also watch this. I want to go back, Ron. First of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Don.
And I want to talk on this show and have you share your landscape pictures, but talk about your journey, how you transitioned over from a world-class sports photographer into doing almost world-class landscape photography now and leading your own.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm not in your class at all.
Well, I think it's quite a jump. I think people who aren't photographers, they look at professional photographers and just think, you're a professional photographer. You can do it all. You could go shoot a wedding this week, and then you could shoot an NFL game next week, and then you could go off to Norway and shoot the Northern Lights. And talk a little bit about your transition into doing what happened to the sports career at Sports Illustrated. What happened there?
You know what? It just kind of ran its course. I'd been shooting sports so long, but by all the time that I put in before I got to Sports Illustrated, all the years that I was there. And then even after I decided to retire from Sports Illustrated, I still was doing sports for Getty Images. I was just going to the games on my own and shooting strictly stock. And I actually, enjoyed that because I was, working at my own pace. And, I was just kind of, if I wanted to stay for 5 innings or the whole game, whatever, I could. And then one day I just, I was actually at a spring training game in Bradenton, Florida. And I was in like the 3rd or 4th inning. And I just, what, Don, it just hit me, I just can't do this anymore. And I just did not want to do sports after all those, 40 some years or whatever it was total. And I just, I just thought, I need to do something else. But I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I mean, I loved the outdoors. I was actually already dabbling in some outdoor photography with doing some, fishing images, marlins, jumping, sailfish, that sort of thing. So I was kind of doing that. And I was really enjoying it, but I didn't really have, at that point, I didn't really have an outlet, for the images. And one of the gals that used to work at the Miami Herald was the outdoor writer. And one day she says to me, I lost my job at the Herald and I'm doing some work for Guy Harvey Outpost. And Guy Harvey is a world-renowned artist. He's a marine biologist, that sort of thing. He's really well known for his paintings. I'm sure people have seen his T-shirts all over the place. Well, anyway, she sets up an interview with me to go up there and do these things. And so I went up to Fort Lauderdale from Alvarado, Florida, and I met with them, and I really liked them. They had some ideas on some things, and they had also like some small fishing tournaments they wanted to do, and so I decided that. Well, anyway, before I left, one of the gentlemen says, "Hey, you know what? We're thinking of putting one of these Guy Harvey outpost things down in the Galapagos. Would you be interested in maybe trying to put some kind of photography together down there?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd be most interested in doing something like that." And so I thought, being in the business for such a long time, like you, Don, we get presented with some of these ideas. Could be today, could be tomorrow, could be never. More than likely, it's going to be never. And so I kind of just like took it, with a grain of salt, and then But lo and behold, about 4 days later, he calls me up and says, "Can you go down to the Galapagos with us next week?" And I thought, "Oh my God, this guy's really serious about this." So anyway, we go down to the Galapagos, and I looked at the way he wanted a land-based operation. So I signed up for a bunch of the tours to go to the different islands. I was making some pictures, some wildlife stuff, and then I thought, wow, you know what? There might be something here. So he asked me to see if we could put a trip together. Well, we put one trip together, and it was very successful. And we put a second one together; it was very successful. And so I thought, you know what? This maybe could work into something. Well, right shortly after that, I went out to California, and I was on Big Sur. And so I thought, I'm going to call this guy Don Smith and see if he'll give me a location or two to shoot. Well, I called you, Don. And afterwards, I felt really kind of stupid because I thought, here are the guys in the landscape photography business, and I'm asking them for some free locations to go and shoot. Well, you gave me one or two. I went and shot them. And then a while later, all of a sudden, you called me one day.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, we knew each other casually because we bumped into each other in Arizona and some things when you were doing something for Sports Illustrated. And then you said, "Hey, I saw the stuff you're doing with the Galapagos, and would you be, maybe interested in teaming up on a workshop with me?" And you said, "I'm thinking of doing Patagonia."
Yeah.
And then you can take it from there.
Yeah. Well, I called Ron, and at the time I was doing a lot of work with Gary Hart. He started me in this business, and Gary and I kind of had this arrangement that if one of us came up with a new idea for a workshop, we'd bounce it off each other. And at the time, I had this what I thought was a brilliant idea to add in 5 or 6 international locations to what I was doing. And I went to my wife, Barry, and I told her, and she rolled her eyes and said, "As long as you do just one per year." Well, I went off and wanted to scout 5 or 6 all in 1 year. And I called Ron. Well, I first went to Gary and I said, "Hey, Gary, I want to do a workshop. I'm thinking of doing a workshop down in Patagonia." And I thought he'd be really interested in it. And Gary, he's already so successful at what he's doing with workshops. He had so many workshops on the docket. He just said, I don't think I have time to squeeze it in. So I said, all right. I said, I'm going to give this Ron Modra a call and see if he wants to do it. So I called you up and I said, "Hey, Ron," I said, "you still interested in doing a workshop?" He says, "Yeah." "Where are we going?" And I said, "Patagonia." And he says, "Great, I'm in." And then there was a long pause. And I knew, and I said, he kind of waits and he says, "Where the heck's Patagonia?" And I said, "Well, you got to go on Google Maps and go all the way down to the bottom of South America. It spans over, it's a region that spans over Argentina and Chile. And I really don't even know where the boundaries of Patagonia are."
Yeah, I don't either. But you know what? The funny thing was, I said, "Yeah, I mean," and I'd been to South America a number of times for a variety of stories I was working on, but I'd never been to down to Patagonia, that far south down there. And so I said, "Yeah, I'm in." And so the funny thing is, Don and I, like I said, we knew each other casually. We never really worked together before. So
no, we had one instance with, I forgot to mention, I alluded to it in the Barry Bonds cover. That was my one and only cover with Sports Illustrated. And it was because Ron was working on the story on Barry Bonds, but he kept blowing the writer off and kept blowing Ron off. And I was on another story. And then they said, "Hey, if your guy gets knocked out of the game, photograph Barry Bonds. We're working on a story." And it really, the magazine turned the Barry Bonds story into a hit piece. And anyway, I got the cover, which is really a throwaway shot. And my wife always laughs and says, "You and Ron Modra are joined at the hip for life because of that." And so about 2-3 weeks later, after calling you, we were all on a flight, Barry, I, and you, and heading down to.
Yeah, we were. Well, the thing is, we met up in Dallas.
Yeah,
flight down to South America. Well, anyway, we meet in Dallas, and so I never had really given it any thought. The fact is that, yeah, you know what? Here we are. the three of us don't really know each other all that well, never worked together,
Yeah.
side by side or anything, don't know how, one or the other works. I am completely 100% new to landscape photography. I mean, we get down to the tip of South America. This thing could have gone off the rails in so many different directions, but the
Yeah.
funny thing is that we got down there and Don and I, we hit it off right away. And, we started doing the scouting and I was kind of watching what he was doing and as far as landscape going. And so, and again, I owe Don a great big debt of gratitude for bringing me into the landscape photography and, teach me about the workshop business. But that was our introduction to working together and working on landscape. And I've got to say that, I fell in love with landscape photography almost the minute
Yeah.
I started doing it. I could see, compositionally what I wanted to do, sometimes how I want to do it. And again, I think the beauty of coming from the sports background and, not being a landscape photographer like a lot of these guys are, I didn't know what the rules were.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the rules were of
There
landscape.
are no rules. There really are no
So
rules.
that's the beauty of it. I shot the way I wanted to compose a picture, and it was absolutely fantastic. We had such an incredible time down there. We made some great pictures. We encountered some wind like you've never encountered before, and we laughed about it. And then
Had a
then
great
we came
time.
back, we came back and we said, I think we can do this. And we did, and that was
We
going
did it.
on almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And then now I'm a completely have gone in the direction of away from sports into landscape, and the transition has been it's been I guess kind of methodical. I mean, it was like I started going along with kind of small steps of this journey into reinventing myself as a
Yeah.
editorial sports photographer for so many years into what I'm doing now. I mean, I never had used filters before, never shot at f/16, never shot at like a 20-second or 30-second exposure. I'd never really done that. Was all like new to me. We were used to shooting with 600 millimeter lenses wide open, 1,000th of a second or 2,000th of a second, whatever we could get away with. Never at whatever the lowest ISO you can get your camera. That was all Greek. And with Don kind of helped me along there. It's in the last, I think it's going on either 6 or 7 years now that we've been working together. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've done some great things, and we're continuing to do great things. And so, that was a big moment for me, was to find myself as a landscape and wildlife photographer. Never dreamt that I would ever get away from sports, but it's something now that I've really immersed myself in it. I absolutely love it. I look at landscape, YouTubes and other photographers' work that I really like, and then I just try to add maybe a little something that something that I like to do, and I've really I've enjoyed the teaching aspect of it. I never had really done a lot of teaching in the sports thing, but I enjoy when I can stand next to somebody and point something out, composition wise. I mean, Don is, a lot of they're way more technical than I am, because you got to remember there were no histograms, back in the
No,
when Don and I started. So this
we
is
only have Polaroids.
we only had the Polaroids, and the metering system was like a little needle in the
Yeah.
middle of the camera. So the journey into landscape has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I owe everything to Don. I'm eternally grateful for him bringing me into this. And we've had a really good time. When you say, Don?
I think we've had a tremendous time together touring the world. And
Yeah, Don and I have done a number of internationals together, which we really are enjoying. And God, I mean, for me to see some of these places and actually be able to take the time to do some photography is that, all the time that I travel for Sports Illustrated, we were kind of in and out of a lot of, I mean, I went to Italy, I went to Moscow, I went to China, but I never had time to do anything because was so tied up with the assignments. But now I'm able to really, work on my landscape photography, help other photographers. And this image is from a workshop that Don and I do in Norway. And I believe this was from last year. It was only the second time I'd ever seen the Northern Lights. Don has seen them in Iceland, but I was just blown away by them. And so this image came from
Lofoten Islands.
From Norway, yeah. So
yeah, and by the way, Ron, before you talk about this one, this is another Lofoten Island. We do have 5 openings still. That if you would like to join us, just either go to my website or Ron's website, and we'd love to have you, because this may be the last year we're going to do Lofoten Islands. We haven't decided, but we'd love to have you join us. So Ron, I love this shot. This is a cool little shot.
Yeah, this is like, again, like Don and I were talking about, there's no rules. Some landscape photographers, they adhere to a lot of these, compositionally rules, thirds, that sort of thing. And then, they don't want to do anything with the color. Well, I like to kind of put my own kind of touch on things where, this was a color shot. And what I did is I desaturated everything. And then I just left the little fishing hut in red. And so again, these are some things that, when we're on the workshops, little things that I teach some of the participants that, look at some of these locations in kind of a different way and put your own spin on it. Don and I like to preach in the landscape world that, these are your images, and, put your own spin on it. This is one I just shot just about a month or two ago it's the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, on a workshop that I just completed there. And it was a really, really nasty night. And this was like right at the tail end of the day. And again, where I was able to use a five-stop slow-mo filter, slow it down, and it gave just a fantastic mood to this image from Ireland.
For some of you, not to jump over you, Ron, but for some of you who are new to landscape photography, what a 5-stop is,
right.
It's a neutral density filter that cuts 5 stops worth of light. And so you compensate by going to a longer shutter, correct? And
yes.
Water will start to mist up for you. Clouds will start to move. A lot of stuff we can do. We're always joking about our 5-stopper. Is this a 5-stopper? Is this a 10-stopper?
Exactly. And so, but we have a lot of people thinking in that direction, and they've been really enjoying, as much as I mean, I'm getting a kick out of doing some of these things as the clients are.
Yeah.
Another one from Ireland. This is the dark hedges, using a telephoto lens to compress the trees. And again, this is, diving into my transition into landscape on some of these items. Again, this was from Northern Ireland, the one that I just completed. This is the Giant's Causeway. Again, I've learned to use the 5-stop, the 10-stop, and, look for the cloud movement and the water movement and that sort of thing, but not getting away from always trying to maintain, a focal point, anchor point, for the pictures. When we're doing sports, and Don knows this as well as anyone, when you're doing sports photography, you're at the mercy of the action. So there is no thing like an action point, or, you're not trying to compose an action shot there. You just have to time it and hope your timing's right. These kind of things that you want to make your composition pleasing. You want to have it flow, leading lines, and working with the light. Like Don likes to always say, and he taught me this, is, working at the edges of the day. We don't like to do too much in the middle of the day if we don't have to. middle of the day doesn't really cut it. It's too contrasty, but evenings, mornings, that sort of thing. This was one I just shot about a week ago in the Smoky Mountain National Park with a group that I had there. And we went out for sunrise, and man, I tell you, this is where you've got to really tough it out. The cloud cover was there. We didn't think we were going to get any kind of a sunrise. And all of a sudden it just started a little gap came in there. And then before you know it, all of these rays started to come through that little gap. And it was, for me, this might be a once in a lifetime sunrise.
These are the moments you pinch yourself. This is when you say it's worth getting out of bed at 4.
Yeah, this is one where you want to say, wow, am I glad that I got up at 5 o'clock to drive down there and do this. And I had a group of 7 or 8 with me. And there was another workshop there. And boy, you should have heard the hooting and hollering going on from these landscape photographers when that light was shooting through there. So it was just, it just was a remarkable morning. This is one from another one of Don and my workshop. This is in Monument Valley. And again, one of the things that I've tried to bring to since I was growing up in the newspaper business is my love of black and white photography. And so I look for images that are going to translate into black and white, and I go for it. And so now we've got quite a few of the participants that have been going with us, and they say, "Oh man, Ron, I'm so glad you introduced me to black and white. I'm really just enjoying it, and I'm looking for pictures that can translate into black and white." So this was one. Came from a project that I called the Pandemic Project #1. We were all kind of stuck indoors. I was down in Florida. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, so I started to go out and photograph these rosette spoonbills. They're really exotic looking birds, and so all of a sudden I started going out every day to some locations where they were, and I started trying to make some wildlife images. So this was another example of my transition. This was from another one of the workshops that we did, Horseshoe Bend. The composition kind of is right there for you. You just kind of have to kind of play with it a little bit. I actually crawled out so I could get the widest lens that I had, so I could get over the top of the ledge, so I could get the complete water in there. And so, again, just trying to, make pleasing compositions out on the workshop. This came from that same workshop. This was in Sedona. We went out there and at sunset, and the creek was coming through there, and I used a 10 stop. I think it was quite a 30-second exposure, something like that. And again, learning how to do these landscapes images, studying other landscape photographers, trying to make the transition from the sports into the landscape. And again, like I said, I'm having a ball. This came from the first trip I made down to the Galapagos when I was putting that Galapagos trip together of giant tortoise. They're right there in front of you, and they're not intimidated. I was just laying on the ground, and this tortoise just walked on by, as they say. So this was, again, getting into the wildlife and landscape. This came from an incredible trip that Don and I workshop. We did, I think, 3 years or something like that into Scotland.
Up in the Highlands, yeah.
And so the Highlands, it was, again, just trying to look for compositions, something that's pleasing, working at the edges of the day, bringing a trained sheep with you doesn't hurt, get them in there, stand still there.
But look at that. I won't have you go back, Ron, but look at the light on that. How beautiful the light is.
Yeah, it's just,
we put the Scottish Highlands trip on hold for a while because it was quite a trip. I just would love to go back
Yeah,
there one day.
yeah, we might revisit that one.
Yeah, you just never know.
You never know. We might just revisit that one. Again, this was from that Smoky Mountain location, the same one where you saw that sunrise, but a
That's
different sunrise with all the fog hanging on the bottom. Again, I'm really glad I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get down there and shoot that sunrise. That's one of the things about when we were working at Sports Illustrated. We didn't have a lot of 5 o'clock wake up calls. That's for sure.
I knew when we did our scouting trip to Patagonia, we went to El Chalten, which is the home to Mount Fitzroy, the famous Patagonia logo. When you see the Patagonia logo and the big tall peak, that's Mount Fitzroy. And we slept basically right underneath Mount Fitzroy. We weren't camping out, but we were in a hotel. And we got up very early to go out there for a sunrise shoot when you and Barry and I.
Yeah.
And we got it when that alpenglow light hit Mount Fitzroy. Oh my gosh, it was just click, 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 click.
Yeah.
And then we looked at each other and just high-fived each other and went, wow.
Yeah.
And I knew that was hooked.
And we were very lucky on trips that we went down there because we were incredibly lucky because all of our groups and ourselves, we saw a sunrise each one of the time. There's been groups that went down there where they were sitting at the base of Mount Fitzroy for a week.
Yeah, and never saw the mountains, never opened up. They get in the clouds. Yeah.
Little waterfalls from the Smoky Mountains, again, you using the slow shutter speed, second or 2 seconds. This one didn't have the 5 or 10 stop. Oh, this was for one where, this was one where Don brought me out to Big Sur.
Yeah.
And
that's really pretty, Ron.
I shot, this was a great location. And
we're going, well, when this show airs, we will be done with our Big Sur workshop.
Yeah. We'll get them next year. Again, this was from my trips to the Smoky Mountains, photographing some wildlife out there with the elk. And again, the wildlife and the landscape photography. I'm so into it now. I'm just trying to continually improve as a landscape photographer. This image, Don and I are going to both talk about this because this happened, I think, last year. We went to this location. We were almost going to wrap for the day. And then Don said, I got one more location. I don't know if it's going to be any good.
Matterhorn Rock. Yeah.
Huh?
This is called Matterhorn Rock.
Matterhorn Rock. And we both kind of looked at each other and says, you know what? It's the last shoot of the day. Let's go. So we took the clients there. And oh my God, this was the sunset that
somehow that wall of fog you see sitting out there over the sun was down on the water.
Yeah.
And as much as I've been around the ocean, and I live right next to an ocean now, the Pacific Ocean, I've never seen where the wall just actually opened up and the sun, it was just you just never know in nature. And that was a gift that was handed to us.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, the difference between like doing the landscape and the sports is the fact is that with the landscape, I'm finding that you just don't know when the right moment is going to come. And like this particular moment, I think Don only lasted, 10 seconds or whatever.
Oh, it was quick.
I mean, that it was here and it was gone.
Yeah, we called it out. Click now. You better be clicking.
Yeah.
This is it. This is it. And everybody got the shot.
Yeah. Oh, this was from Grand Tetons.
And again, Sunrise.
And this is another one where I tried to put my own little spin on there where I desaturated, made it black and white, and just left the mountain tip in color.
In the alpenglow when it first hit. Yeah,
when it first hit. And so again, like, I'm trying with the landscape thing is to try to put my own little spin on there. This was also one where Don and I were out in the Tetons. Phenomenal. I believe this was sunrise. Wouldn't it be, Don?
So, this is dawn light, the twilight wedge at Oxbow Bend.
Yeah. And again, like some of this up in here, just kind of waiting it out because you just don't know where that sometimes, you'll think that, oh, maybe we should just pack up and go. But then all of a sudden, you'll just start to see some of this little glow. And if you stick it out, other photographers are going home. You wait it out, and boom, you got something. This is another one where I just decided I was just going to fool around with some black and white and just leave some of the fall color in there.
That's cool. This is a TA Molten Barn. This is all on our Falling Grand Teton trip that we're doing again next year. Ron wasn't on this one this year because you were in Ireland doing the Ireland trip.
But I'll be there. I'll be there next year.
I've got you advertised for, and I think we only have 4 spots left open at this point because I'm limited.
And you know, like we do with some of these images is that, and Don does the same thing with some of his processing and that sort of thing too. I always tell people that, you know, some people might not like this, but I don't shoot these things for, you know, for other people. I shoot for my own enjoyment, and I try to show other photographers another possible way of trying to look at the landscape. And you know, sometimes there's some people that just aren't into black and white, or they're real purists and they don't want to, you know, to expand their horizons, and that's great. You know, the beauty of photography is that it's your own photography that you need to concern yourself, how you want to present your pictures, how you want to shoot them. Don and I always tell people in the image review is that, look, we're here to help you compositionally, technically, but in the end, it doesn't matter what we think. It's what you think. Yeah. And that's where I try to help.
So well said. So I tell people, before you get on to this one, I really love this place, but I tell people, I'm not trying to record reality out there. It's a starting point. Ansel Adams was the same way. I've read every book Ansel ever wrote, probably multiple times. His black and white was as far away from reality. He actually started one of his books, I believe it was one of the classics of the trilogy called The Print, where he says, I have to laugh when people tell me how well I capture reality. Yeah. My photos are so far not what my eyes saw, but it's what I feel and what I want to accomplish. And I feel the same way. If, you know, somebody said, oh, gee, the color is really that vibrant. And sometimes I go, no, they were actually more vibrant, or actually, yeah, I bumped that green up a little or something like that. But this is Hamnoy in the Lofoten Islands, Ron.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a classic shot from the bridge there that we've done a number of times. And so, and again, like Don is just pointed out, you know, the thing is, like when you're shooting pictures these days, you know, it's 50% your composition in the camera, and then it's another 50%, you know, how you process the images. You know, I'm not a big fan of some of the photographers that oversaturate that sort of thing. I look for a little more of a natural feel, especially with my color images. But again, it's like, you know, it's like when you're out there looking at a landscape, trying to make a composition, Don and I both look at it the same way. So we're trying to create a mood with our pictures to make them pleasant, make you want to go there, you know. And so, you know, that's what we try to do, and that's, you know, the way I view the landscape thing. Again, this is another one from Norway. It's called the
Dragon's Eye.
That Dragon's Eye, yeah, with the mountain range in the back, and again, using the slow-mo filter, using the Dragon's Eye as your focal point. And again, full disclosure, I saturated went a little heavy on the blue because I wanted the eye to be directed, you know, towards that.
You know, I just think that's the artist's prerogative. Where I draw the line, and I think you're the same way, Ron. I've known you long enough. I'm not going to drop a moon in the shot.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not going to have the Loch Ness monster popping up out of the water out there.
Right.
And with all this AI stuff coming in with Photoshop, the generative AI, it's so easy to do, but that's not what thrills me. What if I bring a color up or something, like you said, to draw the eye or something, or lighten, or you know, I came up in the darkroom age, same as you. Yeah. We would dodge and burn and use bleach to get things to direct the eye.
Well, that's it.
And
That's, that back in the darkroom days when we were growing up in the newspaper business, you had to use your hands
yeah,
to
yeah,
to uh, to make that kind of get the focal point to to where you wanted it in the image. Now it's quite a bit easier with the sliders and everything. But
sure.
I don't mind saturation points, that sort of thing. But like Don says, we're not going to drop Nesty in there to make that kind of picture. Again, another from the Smoky Mountains, slow shutter speed, using the greens, using leading lines, that sort of thing. Well, this was one where from last year. This was we had 2 back-to-back workshops in Monument Valley last year. Again, one of our favorite locations. And the last morning we were there, a snowstorm came in. And both Don and I had been to Monument Valley quite a few times. It was the first time we'd ever seen real snow there.
And we had 2 workshops, and both workshops got snow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
and
was
we're back out there this December. We'll be back.
yeah.
out.
I mean, it was. We
Yeah.
always, every time we went out there. Well, I hope we get snow this time, and then this time we got it both times. This was the last morning before we were, our second last morning before we were going home, and so it's Monument Valley, remarkable place. I love it there. This is a lock below the Old Man of Store in Scotland, one of our Scottish locations. As we were on our way to the Old Man of Store that morning for a shoot, all of a sudden we came across the lock. A lot of times when Don and I were there previously, there was a lot of ripples on the water. There was no reflection. And this particular morning, we had a really nice, beautiful morning where we could make a nice composition with the Old Man of Store in the background, which is right up there.
And this is on the Isle of Skye. Is that
Isle of Skye, yeah. We might have to revisit.
I don't know, Ron. I'm seeing your pictures. It's making me want to go back.
Yeah, we might have to revisit this.
You're going to have to convince my wife.
This was also from Scotland.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the lighthouse, but
this
was
the one I missed. I unfortunately came down with some sort of bug, and I missed this part of the trip out on the Isle of Lewis and Harris, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was.
That was the portion of the trip I was sick and had to stay behind.
So the great thing about this image is I got it and Don didn't.
Yeah. And this was I have been all over those 2 islands a number of times, and I have yet to be out where we could photograph this point. And I'm blanking on the name of it too.
Right.
But
this is also from the Fairy Pools.
Yeah,
another one of our locations in Scotland, and we had just a remarkable sky that day. The storm. One of the things about Scotland, and this is one of the things that I've really learned about landscape photography, is some of the locations you go to, you really don't want the sun out because it takes away from what is a really incredibly moody location. And so again, like some of the days I look for, like if we're photograph a castle, I'm hoping that it's going to be maybe a little misty or, the sun's not out. So, we get that thing. This is one where, again, where I did the desaturation and with the red phone box. This is kind of funny because Don and I, this was on our scouting trip when we first went there. And so we're driving through this country roads, and all of a sudden I holler out to Don, "Oh, Don, you got to stop. I see a picture." And he says, "What are you looking at?"
Yeah.
And I said, the red phone box. Look at it out there all by itself. And so I got Don to photograph the phone box that day.
I didn't see it as this, though, where he does this technique of leaving it colored and then taking everything else out. Yeah.
This was from the Grand Tetons, one where I just decided I wanted to go a little bit high key.
Yep.
And again, you know what? Some people are going to say, well, that's, not realistic or whatever. But you know what? Some of the things that I do with my processing is, it's what appeals to me. It doesn't work for everybody, but I like it. And I teach it a little bit, and people are kind of starting to get into it themselves. Okay, this was one where Don and I were on the Isle of Lewis and Harris photographing the standing stones. And we got out there and in the evening light, and it started to mist a little bit. And before you know it, we got this most remarkable rainbow with the standing stones.
It was incredible.
It was absolutely incredible. And we thought, oh my God, this was on our scout trip.
Yeah.
And we were saying to each other, oh man, if we could get this next year when we have the clients. And you know what? We did get it.
And we got a double.
We got a double.
We got a double with the clients.
Yeah. And so, and again, simple composition, obviously the rainbow makes the image, but, when Don does image review and again, some of the things I've learned from Don is the fact is like, watching your border patrol. See, I should have taken that out of there because for me, that's distracting and it doesn't have any purpose there. So, again, with this particular composition, I could have probably put a little more air over there, little thing. But again, this is part of the transition process from going into sports, into landscape, is I'm learning a lot about this and in trying to incorporate some of my own vision into it. Again, what we're doing is, landscape. This was out in Sedona, sepia tone, looking for composition, just putting my own little twist on there, edges of the day, great light, looking for clouds, again, just working with the mood of the landscape. I've really started to get into where I really look for a mood in landscape. This was from, the icebergs in Patagonia,
like Argentina, right?
Argentina, and they were that blue. We didn't.
They were that blue. Yes, they were.
We did not have to saturate on this.
No.
The Old Man of Store.
Yeah.
Again, the hike up there. It's just, and looking for something compositionally balance. The old man, and then looking down into the rest of the foreground, rest of the landscape. Again, we were working at the end of the day, and then a storm started to move in, but we still had some really great dramatic light. And that's, again, using long exposure, creating a mood. For me, with landscape, and Don feels, I think, the same way, is like we try to teach the people that go with us to look for a mood in the picture. Try to make something that is, makes a statement, says something about the location that you're at. Looking for reflections, that sort of thing. Again, we had, remarkable, we had some remarkable skies, Monument Valley, black and white, teardrop arch. I liked it in color, but I like it in black and white too. More Monument Valley, black and white, channeling my inner Ansel Adams, as I like to say. Yeah. This was from Montana, some wild horses running through the field. From the Galapagos, composition, try to, make, even though you're doing wildlife, try to make a composition that's pleasing, the albatross flying over the ocean. Again, trying to make the composition. This was one that Don and I just did recently. This was, we went out and shot some star trails.
This was at Joshua Tree National
Park.
We weren't going out really to scout for a workshop, were we?
No, we were just out there having fun.
And we came home, started going through images, and got together on the phone and said, I think we got something here. We could put this together and do a night sky workshop out in Joshua Tree would be really cool.
Yeah,
and we're sold out already for March.
A pano shot from Scotland, looking at, trying to make, interesting, kind of images, things that I've learned as I've made the transition from sports into landscape, stitching some images together, to try to make a more pleasing composition, stitching some images together of the barn, having a blast with it. And again, trying to create a mood with the pictures and with what we're trying to do. And so, again, for me, it's been an absolute, another remarkable journey working with Don, doing landscape photography. I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm really into it. And, it's kept me being able to be a photographer, which is what I really love. It's what always loved, and it's the only thing I've ever done. And again, I'm going to give Don credit for bringing me in, and I've learned so much from Don Smith. I'm forever grateful. Thank you, Don.
I appreciate that, Ron. And I've learned a lot from you. We do that workshop you showed out in Monument Valley, and we incorporate now, we work with the Navajos out there who get in the traditional garb of the day, and we do location shoots with the Navajos. And just that was a workshop I really owe to you, because that's something I wouldn't have thought of doing. So you kind of opened up and broadened me as a photographer, and I appreciate that. And I've been able to expose what I love about photographing the landscape that I've been doing ever since high school days. And I think the cool thing is we just have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do.
We're not, our workshops, if you're looking for somebody very serious and rigid, we're not your guys.
Yeah.
If you're looking to learn a lot, have a great time in the process, and just enjoy the trip overall, I think that's kind of a big part of what we do. And, we're not going to take you to places we wouldn't go ourselves. These are places we're excited about going to. So,
and I think the exciting part is, I think a big part of it is the fact is that, what we're teaching, we're taking the clients of these locations, and we're teaching them how to come home with some really, really remarkable images. Exactly. And that, for me, as the longer I get into the doing the workshops with you, Don, the more I really enjoy seeing the clients get a really terrific picture. I enjoy that as much as shooting it myself, because when they come away and they're thrilled, and at the end of the day, they come up to us and say, "Wow, what an incredible day, guys! Thank you." That just, it means the world to me, and I know it does to you too. So
that might be a good point to wrap it up. We both have had up our URLs to our website here, and we'd invite you to come on and browse our websites and check out the workshops we're doing. And Ron and I are doing a lot together. And Ron, I want to thank you for being a part of this. Not only part one with your incredible sports and your stories, but it's been, you talk about satisfying. I've had a lot of people ask me to hey, I want to become a landscape photographer. But when they find out what it's about, and the long hours and the long days, and they kind of go, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And I go back to that story in Patagonia on our scouting trip at El Chalten, when you and Barry and I just talked about this a few minutes ago, stood out there, and Mount Fitzroy caught that alpenglow light.
Yeah.
We were like three kids in a candy store.
Yeah, we were.
It just was, if that doesn't light you up, I don't know what does. Yeah. And getting to travel the world with you and put together some of these incredible workshops. And neither one of us, we've slowed down, but we're not planning on stopping anytime soon. We enjoy this too much. And
it's just, we're photographers.
We're photographers.
That's exactly what we do. And we're teachers.
Yeah. We want to share the knowledge, like you alluded to in your the one on sports photography. You don't do this alone. And I owe so much to so many people. My wife, Gary Hart, who I hope to have on here next month as a guest. These are people that brought me in and supported me. Gary brought me in and taught me how to run landscape workshops. And my wife, Barry, have been behind me every step of the way as an involved in the business.
Yeah.
He's the one who's handling the hotels and the properties and the signups and all the communication that goes on. It's a lot of work that goes on into putting these, and the people behind the scenes. And
it's a team effort. These things are team efforts.
They really are. Yeah.
And I think the way we've presented it, with the fact is that, for both of our careers. As it's, you don't get anywhere if you think you're going to do it by yourself. People along the way help you, support you, believe in you. And that's how we got to the point where we're at today, because people believed in us.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, that's
I
great.
think we should probably end on that note before we start crying.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, I want to thank you again, and I want to thank all of you that have stayed with us. And again, if you haven't seen part one of the interview with Ron in his Sports Illustrated days, the link is down below in the show notes. Please check it out. And I plan on continuing to do these videos every Friday. They will come out, a new one, and we're going to keep going. We got a lot more guests lined up and a lot more shows lined up. And if you have any ideas on a show you'd like to see, shoot me an email. And you never know, maybe we can turn it into a show. Hey, Ron, I'm going to let you run.
Okay, Don, thank you very much.
Thank you for being part of this. And to all of you out there, keep shooting, keep creative. It's good for the soul. We'll see you next week.